Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 review. Today I'm doing a review of the first Ninth Doctor box set from Big Finish Productions, which is Ravagers, which I'm not going to lie, over the moon about, and I find it surreal that this is actually a thing, like an actual physical, tangible thing, because if you're not already aware, as a Doctor Who fan, most of us all just assumed that Christopher Eccleston would never be coming back to the role in any capacity, and that anytime soon, if at all, really, because we all just assumed hell would soon freeze over because of like stuff that's kind of come out here, there, and everywhere, like little drips and drabs of information we've ever been sort of had over the years about things that happened during that first series for him personally and his perspective on things. And so yeah, this is just insane. I am going to try and critique and criticise these episodes as best I can without sort of the nostalgia casting a shadow on that, although I will say that will probably be a major factor in this. So yeah, if I were you, I'll be honest, I'd probably watch and listen and read a lot of other people's reviews as well as my own to get a better idea. Don't just watch mine, because I do actually think that mine would probably not be the most helpful out there, because this is my childhood Doctor. I was about 7 or 8 when he was in the role, so yeah. First of all, I'll go over the packaging of the cardboard sleeve. It's just a sort of design with Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor, up in front, up in the main centre there. You've got a tank, TARDIS, sphere, sort of a droid sort of thing. You've got some Romans, you've got a Roman, you've got a giant robot, and you've got some people from the Battle of Waterloo. On the spine, you've got Doctor Who, Ravages, BBC, number 1, Big Finish, We Love Stories, and then this really cool epic design of like fire and the Ninth Doctor there and that, which looks really cool if you were just displaying them, your box sets that way. You've still got the artwork on the back, or the promotional sort of design on the back, and then a synopsis of the whole story, or the sort of the sort of story arc, as it were. I'll move the Ninth Doctor action figure over here for the time being. Yeah, I mean, you start off with, first of all, I'll just quickly go over the packaging of these three things. One thing that I do want to point out with the box set, or with the cardboard sleeve and the colour scheme of the CDs, is something that I hadn't mentioned, or hadn't noticed until someone pointed out online on Twitter. Batman March, Matthew Toffolo, pointed out something really interesting, which is that the colour schemes correspond with the original single DVD releases way back when, in sort of 2005 or 6 even, you know, when they were releasing the sort of first series of Doctor Who on DVD, and that. So, like, there was a single DVD with certain episodes, which was a purple DVD case, a green one, an orange one, and a sort of blue one. And it's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. That's such a cool sort of, cool little, like, Easter egg / sort of, bonus points in terms of the packaging and that design and that, you know, like, Big Finish really didn't need to do that, but I just love the fact that they went the extra mile, really. So yeah, first of all, you have Spear of Freedom, which is in this sort of purple design, which I quite like. It's sort of really works well, the sort of darker purple, I think. I think, honestly, the cover that I like the least would probably be Food Fight, which is kind of ironic considering that, weirdly enough, orange is probably my favourite colour. So yeah, weirdly enough though, I don't think that one works that well, especially if you have the reversible cover changed to the 9th Doctor / 10th Doctor logo, which I do because it's the right era logo. So yeah, like the orange, it pops out enough, the logo, but like obviously not as much as when it's on a sort of green background or on a sort of purple background. I don't know, you could argue that these sorts of covers are quite simplistic and not that sort of intricate or complex, but honestly I think I like them for that reason. I like the simplicity of the sort of designs of these covers. Personally, I think they go more with sort of the newer series sort of approach and style guide, personally. I think the more well, not cluttered, but more busy covers work better for the classic series, and I'm not sure why that is, but personally I feel like the busier covers work, as I just said earlier, better with the older series of Doctor Who. If you haven't already noticed, each episode is written by Nicholas Briggs, who, if you're not already aware, is the guy who did the voices of the Daleks back in 2005. And has done them ever since. He's sort of the second in command, I want to say, up there with Jason Haigh-Ellery, I think his name is. But him and like Nick Briggs are like the top two people at Big Finish, from what I understand. So yeah, starting off with the sphere of there, if I could actually speak, the sphere of freedom, sphere of freedom. They're all like, well, one episode is, I think, exactly an hour. The others are just sort of 48 minutes, and then Food Fight, I think, is just over an hour. So it's about 48 minutes to, as I say, just over an hour, even though weirdly enough on each of the CDs they do say an hour each, which is a bit weird. And then also on the Food Fight you do get an extra CD for special features, or behind the scenes sort of features, which is always a bonus, and I always appreciate that. So yeah, Sphere of Freedom, it's a nice sort of setup sort of story. You know, right from the off, Eccleston just jumps into the role. It's almost as though he's never left, which is insane to say. It's epic, it's very fast-paced, it's, you know, the whole pacing of all three of the stories is very quick, very fast. And that to the point where I feel like I'm probably going to not mention much about each story in a lot of depth. Like the nitty-gritty of it. One, because I don't want to spoil them, but two, because I can't remember all of the little finer details. Not because they were bad stories, but just because, as I say, the pacing was that quick and that sort of da-da-da-da-da-da, you know? I think the best way I can describe this sort of story is, as I say, just sort of world building and that, and it feels, again, because of the pacing, the stories feel very sort of Stephen Moffat-esque, but with the refinedness of, but with some of the more fine-tuning of sort of a Russell T Davies script in terms of the sort of characters, or the sort of character moments, I suppose. We're already sort of thrown into the action at the beginning, and that sort of think Night of the Doctor style. You know, the story just sort of starts at the sort of almost as though we've already been part of this adventure, if that makes sense, like halfway through an adventure. There isn't a lot of setup, you are just, as I say, thrown in the deep end. And in that sense, even though this is a new series box set, I'd honestly say if you've never listened to Doctor Who Big Finish, maybe this might be a miss for you. I think if you've had at least like 10, 20 or so, if not more, if not a few less, I think that then this one would be a better jumping on point. But honestly, it's so sort of fast paced and sort of throws you in the deep end. I think this would be a bit more challenging for new listeners. There are Romans, obviously. Again, Eccleston's Ninth Doctor. The Ninth Doctor is just a powerhouse. You know, he's just a powerhouse, and he just full on just throws himself into this sort of story head first, and that it's like he's never not been wearing the leather jacket. There's this old woman who kind of there's a plot twist with this old woman, and I could have seen that. I saw that a mile away, and that so yeah, that was a thing. I like the fact that it's this story, this whole arc, the story arc, the 3 episodes aren't being told linearly or they're being told non-linearly, if that makes sense. You're not going from point A to point B. It is very, as I say, timey-wimey. In that sense, it does remind me of a Moffat script. We get introduced to Nova, I'm pretty sure, the companion sort of character in this story, and Sphere of Freedom. But again, it's more about the sort of world building, about sort of her and how the world is affecting her and what her baggage is, and that, as it were, her living arrangements, her family, or her backstory. We get bits and pieces about that. We get about like the vids and the sphere of freedom and the games, the video games, the sort of VR headset video games people are playing, and the rich aliens and this and that. Really good world building, and I really like the fact that already you've got, Romans displaced in World War One, and that, which is reminds me of Iron Legion, which is a Doctor Who comic way back when, which did a very similar sort of thing, I suppose. But yeah, it's nice as well to finally have a Ninth Doctor story set off-world, off a space station, or further afield than a space station, because in Series 1, the Ninth Doctor never got further than a space station. He only ever got on Satellite 5, or and that was it. He never actually went to an alien planet. So it's nice to see that, but then he meets, Captain Faraday and as I say, some Roman legions and that, and he's trying to sort of stop them from fighting. Kind of reminds me in that sense of like, the closest the Ninth Doctor's ever had to a sort of Silurian / Sea Devil-esque sort of story, in so much as I can visualise, the World War One soldiers on one side and then the Romans on the other, and him just trying to be like, stop! We don't have to do this. Put the weapons down. You're better than this. Sort of thing. Just screaming about that. But overall, unfortunately, I think I gave this one a 7 out of 10. It's not the best story ever, but it's not the worst. It's just sort of world building and introducing Nova and introducing the Ninth Doctor to you again. Because again, he has been gone for quite some time actually. So yeah, moving on to episode 2, Cataclysm, which is again, I actually really like the cliffhanger for part 1, I'll be honest. Cataclysm is another interesting one. We get the android or the droids sort of creatures now. We get some really funny interplay with Nova, and we actually get some interesting sort of conflict between Nova and the Ninth Doctor. I'll be honest, I think my biggest criticism of this box set and the 3 stories overall is probably Nova, and that I think she's quite a weak character so far, but if she is going to be in the rest of the series, or the next box set and the box set after that, and in the next 2 or 3 box sets, then she can redeem herself. But if she isn't, or if she ends up getting killed or leaving or whatever by end of box set 2 and they haven't done much with her, then that would be a bit disappointing, because again, I think she has the potential to grow on me, but where we are now, she's good, but she's not great, and that it's an interesting one, and I like the fact that they play with the idea of her being different to obviously the way that the Romans look and the way the World War One soldiers look and that. And again, we do get some nice conflict between Nova and the Ninth Doctor. You do get some conflict and them butting up against each other and that, which is something that I know a massive critique of the Jodie Whittaker era is that everyone just seems to agree with everything and is always happy-go-lucky and that's it. But as I say, there is some actual drama and tension here. And then some comedy as well with one of the guards in the prison and that, and I thought that was pretty funny. And that, as I say, the sort of the world building and the sort of pacing remind me of either Moffat or Russell T Davies, actually, thinking about it. It feels very much of the era, does this sort of all these stories, which is brilliant. Might even go so far to say which is fantastic, Cataclysm, what else? this is the one where we start to the sort of story sort of unravels, and we start realizing that actually, that the plot sort of starts to thicken and kind of start to be a bit more sort of, again, for lack of a better term, timey-wimey. And it builds off episode 1 really well. It's a nice continuation of that. I love hearing the Ninth Doctor theme. That's very nostalgic for me, and it just is brilliant. Again, the audio design is 10 out of 10 throughout all these stories. At this point, that goes without saying with Big Finish, really. The music, and as I say, the sound design, and again, Eccleston's sort of presence, and just sort of, like, I can just picture him so well in these sorts of stories, because he brings so much to the role, like this phenomenal sort of weightlessness, but also weight when needed, like, it's effortless. It comes across like it's effortless for him, like, and then there are jokes about the psychic paper as well, which I quite liked, and that in this story. I give Cataclysm an 8 out of 10. Moving on to the last story, which is the box set, which is Food Fight, which is, as I say, the one that's the longest, I suppose. I think I liked, one thing that I did like, if it is in this story, is something about where he's in the time vortex, and one of the characters is almost dangling out of the TARDIS, and there's a point where he says something about, like, I'm the one who saves you from the monsters, or I'm the person who comes to help you when you're, or I'm the one who comes to help you when you're scared. Something so simple that is just so quintessentially the Doctor, like what the Doctor means to people, both in the Doctor Who, in the context of the Doctor Who universe, but also, like, outside of that, if that makes sense. Like, that almost felt like it was breaking the fourth wall, like saying, I've come to help you guys, like, I know that shit has gone sideways with the world and everything, but, like, the Doctor is back, and he'll, if not solve the problem, at least make it slightly better for you, And there are political messages here and there, or, like, some politically stuff if you want to find it. It's not very in your face, don't worry about that. But there are stuff with Nova about how, as I said before, how she lives, and that, which you could draw parallels with how certain people are living now in both the UK and elsewhere, and about, nurses and doctors and that. There's also, the main baddie is this sort of, what's her name now? I've totally forgotten her name, but Audrey, I think, which, again, Audrey Mahindra, I think, is her name, and without the Mahindra thing, it just sounds like a Coronation Street name, doesn't it? Like, Audrey, that's so funny to me, Now I've just got this image of, like, the Ninth Doctor pottering around the EastEnders place, like, trying to, like, sonic people and that, but, Sonic uses Sonic Screwdriver on there and that, but and run away from Daleks. But yeah, like, I think Chris Eccleston made the point that in the behind the scenes, which I quite like, which I'm going to steal, which is that, I guess with her, what's good is that she's one of the baddies that isn't sort of black and white. She's not a Dalek, she's not a Cyberman. She's a person with sort of goals and thoughts and feelings and goals and sort of objectives and that, and she thinks she's doing the right thing. And the Ravagers appear finally, because they haven't really been in this sort of story that much, because at first I got confused between them and the Time Eddies, which, again, I love the name Time Eddies. The Time Eddies are just, that's so funny to me, and that. But yeah, like, I guess the Time Eddy is like the fabric, or the fabric of space-time sort of tearing, and that is a Time Eddy, whereas at first I thought the Time Eddies were these things, the sort of spheres and that, but I think they're just, like, literally the androids or droids or droids that get shown up and sort of yeah, sort of shown up in Cataclysm, and I think the Ravagers are these sorts of creatures, which is kind of weird because if that is the case, they've got a nicer voice and a nice soothinger voice than I would anticipate. Such horrific creatures to have, you know, and we get a little bit about the Gallifrey, but not much. We get like little bits about how that's just a dead planet, and you know the Doctor really isn't talking about it, which makes sense because this box set and the next 3 box sets presumably are all set before the events of series 1, which makes sense because obviously the Ninth Doctor, spoiler alert for that series, but regenerates at the end of series 1, so there's not really much space there to do much of anything with that sort of era of the show, in terms of like time gaps and that, and places you could place the box set in, and that. So yeah, it's like, it's weird. It's like he's full on like sort of Doctor mode, but like part of me almost feels like maybe he's doing this because you know, if he stopped and paused for even a second, he'd just full on be crying and just broken to the core. You know, I could imagine him being in the TARDIS, huddling himself in the corner, just in a ball, just crying. You know, if he wasn't, you know, preoccupied with this sort of thing and that. And again, the interplay and dialogue and interactions between him and Nova are good, and that I do like them. I just think she's not like, because of the way that this story ends, it kind of feels like the character development we did have, even though it was sort of average to slightly above average, kind of gets set back to 0 by the end of this, which is a little bit annoying. You know, but the Doctor knows her, even though she doesn't know him, and that, and but we know why that is, as an audience, or as a listener, which is quite nice, I guess, for a change. And that we're in the loop for a change. And I love the line, "Oh, so you're a sci-fi nerd," you know, hearing Eccleston just yell that, again, that was another fourth wall break for me, you know, somewhat took me out of the story a little bit, but, you know, hearing him just yell, "You're a sci-fi nerd," and that was, interesting to say the least. But, I gave Food Fight a 9 out of 10. So yeah, overall, I'd give this box set a 24 out of 30. It's a really strong box set. I honestly think, of all the stuff I've listened to from Nicholas Briggs, from Big Finish, personally, I'd say this is easily his strongest outing and output. This, or maybe Light at the End, you know, but then that's like a multi-Doctor story, so that's like quite sort of heavy-handed in that sense. But then this is like one big continuous arc of 3 stories. I quite like Only the Monstrous though as well. That's really good. I think this format works best with the new series Doctors, or newer Doctors, because the format is more similar to the new series. Whereas I like the more sort of split up into 4 parts, sort of monthly range sort of stuff with the older Doctors maybe, or longer stories with older Doctors, because that's just sort of coincides with more their sort of speed of their televised stuff, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I know the next box set isn't going to be one continuous story in the box set, you know, these 3 stories are very much interlinked, you know. And there are giant mechanical robots, and again, there's just so much, for lack of a better term, like shit thrown at the window to just see what sticks. Whether or not you like that method is gonna vary, and whether or not you enjoy Eccleston's performance is another thing. It depends on how much you like him and how much nostalgia you have for his era and that, or whatever, you know, or if you're more an experienced listener at Big Finish, or if you're not, and all sorts of different factors. But as I say, I give this a 24 out of 30. I think it's just, you know, a as the Ninth Doctor himself would say, fantastic, you know, that we have this box set and these stories. And yeah, I love the fast pacedness. I love, you know, just the little moments, you know, the sort of funnier moments of them all talking and yelling at each other, and then him just having to boomingly, like, loudly be like, all right, can we all just be quiet? Now, Nova, you talk about these things and you sort it all out whilst I do a thing. You know, I think Nick Briggs has very much sort of captured the Ninth Doctor really well, and as I say, the pacing of the new series and the Ninth Doctor character really well. I mean, again, there are little nuggets here and there of like Gallifrey, but like I don't even think Gallifrey ever gets mentioned. He refers to it as a dead planet almost. So yeah, it's like he is really trying to bury that, and I'm really interested to see if that gets brought up later on, and if we're gonna get him really angry and seething and that, because he's a lot bubblier and a lot happier in this, which is great. But I would like to see him get to a point where we can almost see why he's so sort of angry and detached and emotionally repressed, and his hearts are blackened almost when we see him in series 1. I'd really love to say, okay, that makes sense now, you know. But yeah, a really good fun box set, and that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate and subscribe.